A Russian soldier reports after his capture how he killed his comrades while he had to hide from Ukrainian soldiers. In an interview, he also explains how he joined the assault infantry, what his equipment was like, how the supply worked, and also how the Russian soldiers at the front eventually started killing each other. All of that is in this video. In eastern Ukraine, the Russian soldier Danil was captured. The 24-year-old was part of a group of Russian soldiers on an infiltration mission that ended in fratricide, meaning the killing of comrades. The killing of comrades happens repeatedly in the Russian army. One of the most disturbing videos is one that was released, where two Russian soldiers are pushed into a pit, and they are told that only the survivor will come out of the hole alive, which actually leads to both of them fighting for their lives unarmed. All of it recorded on video and later published on the internet. But there are also repeated videos of systematic abuse of Russian soldiers by their superiors. However, this story is even wilder because it shows how Russian infiltrations sometimes take place and how comrades end up killing each other. He was on infiltration duty for 2 months between February 17 and April 17 of this year, before he was captured as a prisoner of war by the Ukrainians. He avoided a drug trafficking charge by joining an artillery unit in Belgorod. So before the trial started there, he quickly joined the military instead. There, he got into a dispute with the commander of his artillery gun, after which the battalion commander was asked to transfer him. But instead of being assigned to another gun, this request was not granted. Instead, he was sent to the 82nd. He was transferred to the 82nd Infantry Regiment. In other words, to the infantry. Everywhere, people said that a transfer to the 82nd Regiment was a punishment. It was frightening to be in the 82nd. To end up in the 82nd Infantry Regiment, everyone talked about it as a place where people were supposedly sent as punishment. If you didn't follow orders, if you didn't obey, they would tell you, "Watch out. You'll be sent to the 82nd Regiment in Vovchansk." That's where I ended up. Vovchansk, the town we're talking about, is here on the map. It's in the north of Ukraine, mainly in the northeast of Kharkiv. And that's where he was actually deployed. He had to swim across a river there, and that was probably the Vovcha here, which he swam across to get into this area. And afterwards, he spent 2 months in the village of Roskahravske. The village is still contested to this day. He was there for 2 months before he was taken prisoner. However, at first, he was assigned to the 82nd. He was transferred to the 82nd Infantry Regiment. Once there, he had to write letters to his family and take care of some paperwork. This happened 10 days before his mission. And during that time, he was under guard, not like prisoners, but more in the sense that they were constantly being watched. Of course, none of this is surprising, because they were about to go on a mission with little hope of returning. And in that situation, it was likely that soldiers would try to desert, so they were kept under close watch. He had to form a 2-man team with another soldier for an infiltration. And then, without warning, he was taken by the sergeant. He was told to come along with his partner. The lack of preparation and warning was probably intentional, to make it harder for them to avoid the mission. At the same time, there was obviously no visible mission planning, no significant briefing. The 2 soldiers were effectively only told, "Go here, then there, then over there." Later, it was said that the soldiers were given the coordinates for a house they were supposed to occupy. That was it. Coordinates are also available on the internet. However, you can effectively hide yourself there with a VPN, and that's what today's sponsor offers. Security is important not only in geopolitics, but also on the internet. A VPN helps with that. With CyberGhost VPN, today's sponsor, I can not only browse websites with encryption and no logs, but also bypass the geo-blocking of 40 different streaming services. With just 2 clicks, you can select one of the over 100 countries that CyberGhost offers to unlock content blocked in your region. That's also the case in the UK, which is why I can access probably the best documentaries ever, namely those from the BBC with CyberGhost. Of course, no logs are kept, so no one can track which sites you've visited. With CyberGhost, all your online activity is fully encrypted, so you basically enjoy complete privacy on the internet. One subscription lets me connect 7 devices, including a smart TV and smartphone, and friends and family can use it too. The software is very user-friendly, and works on all common platforms without any technical knowledge required. If any problems do occur, support is available around the clock, of course also in German. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot speak for themselves, as do over 38 million users. If you use the link in the description, you get an 83% discount and 4 months free on top. If you're not satisfied, there's a 45-day money-back guarantee. For his mission, he then received a standard equipment package that every soldier gets. That's used clothing in his size, some clothes in the backpack, shoes that were tied to the backpack. The clothing wasn't protected from water. When he crossed the river, everything got wet accordingly. As I said, that was probably the Vovcha here, or here in Donetsk, if he came from the northwest. So everything was wet, while he, at 17 degrees, on February 17th, so probably below freezing, was supposed to swim across the river. For this, they were given a couple's ration for 2 people, so food for 1 day, a gas stove for 1, 2 gas cylinders for the other, and each received 31.5-liter bottles of water. Everything was in the backpack. It was already packed. You couldn't add any personal items. The pre-packed backpack was given to each soldier. In addition, they received 2 hand grenades, an assault rifle with 3 magazines, and he also had 3 packs of ammunition with 30 rounds each. So overall, the armament consisted of 2 hand grenades, 180 rounds, and that was it. As I said, the backpacks were provided pre-packed. The older of the 2 was given the extension cable for the radio, and the younger one received 2 of the batteries. The Novaya Gazeta journalist asked him about the guards, and why he didn't just fight back with the weapons he had, even though he was being sent to his death. And then he said, well, at first you're escorted and then led to the front, until suddenly you're alone and exposed to Ukrainian drones and being hunted by them. So there really wasn't an option to resist, because the others were always keeping an eye on you. At first, he was brought to the front on a quad bike. There he was handed over to another soldier. That one led him further forward and handed him over to a third. And this one led him and his comrade further forward for another 6 hours. After that, they were left alone. And that's when the journalist asked whether the guides made sure you didn't run away. He then probably said yes. I was later told that they even wanted to shoot a man in the knees because he didn't want to walk. But that didn't happen to me. I walked normally. Poljak and I, that was his comrade, passed 3 checkpoints and went to the 4th without a guide. He lost his comrade, Poljak, relatively quickly, who was apparently killed by a drone. Both soldiers had hidden under their thermal concealment blankets, under their thermal covers at night, when they heard a drone. Daniel then reported it over the radio and was simply told to stay hidden on site. But the drone obviously spotted them and dropped an explosive charge. The older comrade was hit by the explosive charge, one of his limbs. He didn't know whether it was an arm or a leg, but it was blown off. He himself got a small piece of shrapnel in his leg and then ran away. Later, it was his legs. He found a wounded comrade in a foxhole, the one with the call sign Senya. By radio, the 2 of them then received the coordinates of a house in Ravska, right down here at this spot, which they were supposed to occupy. Remarkably, they got no more information, so they had to discover for themselves if the house was occupied by the enemy. He also reports how the soldiers were supplied. The Ukrainians use heavy cargo drones that can carry 15 kilograms or more, which was always possible. So if the cargo drones can be used there, that's how the supplies are delivered. Daniel, on the other hand, reports that FPV drones were used, and they were simply flown into the yard of the house where they were staying and crashed there. In the process, the cargo was often scattered when the drone crashed hard, and one drone, for example, could carry a can of stew, 2 packs of instant noodles, 4 chocolate bars, a power bank, and a pack of oatmeal, plus cigarettes. That's it. After that, the 2 of them then tried to find food in other houses. In the process, they met other Russian soldiers. Emilia and Shah, those are their call signs. They still had their gas stove and also wine. They then teamed up, and while searching for other houses, they found 2 more soldiers, Kit and Shmel. So in total, there were now 6 soldiers on site: Daniel, Shmel, Senya, Kit, Emilia, and Shah. And shortly after that, Russian soldiers started killing each other. Kit and Shmel, according to the quote, were hungry, but they had a huge bottle of homemade wine with them. So they got a little drunk, turned up the radio, started shouting, and Emilia told them to sit very quietly and hide. Then Shaw started screaming. He wasn't afraid of anything and started shooting at the walls with his machine gun through the window. He just lost it. I didn't like that at all, so I got out and went into my house, and Kit and Schmel were with me. Then we kept hearing gunshots from that house. Later, Senja and Shaw came back to us, just the two of them, with a bottle. Shaw started insulting Schmel and arguing over the radio with a commander who apparently belonged to us and had the call sign Kometa. And he was talking nonsense. I'm sitting under a tree. I'll find you. Then he started arguing with Kit, and that was it. Senja killed this Shaw. The journalist, shocked, asks why. He probably thought he was going to kill Kit. Shaw had previously said that he had killed his number 2. So, Senja killed him. So, without enemy contact, the Russian group is already down to 5, without having encountered any Ukrainians. Then it continues. Then Schmel said that Emilia was in the neighboring house and that he also had to be killed. Why? Unclear, but Emilia was number 2 after Shaw. So it was probably better to make sure he wouldn't take revenge for Shaw, who had been killed. So only 4 were left. Daniel, Schmel, Senja, and Kit. Unfortunately, Kit didn't help with the housework in the following weeks. He didn't use the radio, he didn't cook, and he didn't collect snow for drinking water. So Senja shot him when he was drunk. And then there were only 3 left. Life continued for 2 weeks until Senja began calling them useless and cowards. The men had previously found a stocked cellar and therefore had enough to eat, and just wanted to stay there, waiting to be relieved or something like that. But Senja said they were cowards and that they had to attack and capture houses and so on. And then, as the quote continues, it came to the point where we had to kill Senja. Well, so that he wouldn't threaten us and wouldn't point a weapon at us. He just started shooting at the walls while drunk. And then there were only 2 left. They stayed there 2 more weeks until Ukrainian soldiers arrived and told the Russians to surrender. But the 2 of them hid when the Ukrainians discovered cooking utensils, realizing that the house was obviously inhabited, but not by the original residents. That's when the Ukrainian soldiers set the house on fire. Exactly, to smoke out the Russians, to prevent it from being used any further. The 2 of them eventually realized that they had to get out of the basement, otherwise they would suffocate or burn there, so they left the basement to surrender. But by then, the Ukrainians were already gone, and except for their radio and 2 batteries, the 2 of them had nothing left. They had even left their weapons behind by then. After that, almost no supplies came by drone anymore. Most of it was intercepted by Ukraine. The Russian military only sent them 3 hand grenades as weapons. Rifles and ammunition were too heavy for the drones. It just wasn't possible. By the way, it's probably different with the Baba Yaga. With the Ukrainian drones, the cargo drones, there you can easily bring a rifle forward. The 2 survived this way for 2 weeks before surrendering to Ukrainians who found their hiding spot. Originally, there were 6 soldiers on site. 4 of them fell victim to fratricide, without any Ukrainian soldiers even being involved. The armament was limited. The equipment even more so. The supplies were at best just enough to prevent starvation if everything went well. By the way, the officers were informed about this. The journalist asks him if the officers were told that they killed each other. Daniil then says, yes. Senja reported that he killed Shaw. Then he reported to Schmel. Or rather, Senja is said to have made him do it. Made him report that Kit went somewhere and didn't come back. And I reported that I killed Senja. Did you talk about the reasons? The journalist asks. He said he got drunk and started threatening me. The commander, Cornet, didn't say anything to me. He just stayed silent. And this is the grimly realistic outlook reported by an eyewitness in Novaya Gazeta about Russian soldiers, their supplies, how they are chosen for the assaults, their equipment, and how they interact with each other. The situation at the front, including hygiene and the options for resupply. An absolutely impressive and striking interview with shocking content. Of course, I will link it for you in the description if you want to read the whole thing. I can absolutely recommend it. Once again, thanks to CyberGhost for supporting this ad. If you also want to surf the internet safely with a VPN, click the link in the description and get 83% off plus 4 months free. And that's all from me for now. Thank you very much for your attention and see you soon. Thank you also to the supporters on YouTube, as well as here on Patreon. Special thanks to Lieutenant Colonel Mahamori and to the Lieutenants Finn, Funfa Flektan, Jans vom Eck, Uwe de Dufreien, Nickname to Bib, Carsten Schulz, Tequila 42 Immelkopf, Pate, Floja, Capri, Bertenmint, Lichtshatter, NTX, Malermeister Nagel, Markus F., Alex Rosenthal, Martbest, Sigrieder, Möter, Janis Gü, Sascha Müller, Cunningham, euch Stress. Thank you very much. Without you, this would not be possible.